London is obviously a very old city. What's old has been replaced by something new, and that new thing has been replaced, and this has happened over and over again. But just how old is the oldest thing you can see walking around London today? Even just walking along the Thames, you realize you're confronted by many different periods of history. You have modern structures, ancient structures, postmodern, neoclassic, and even Roman. If we want to work our way back beyond the modern cityscape, why not start with something quasi-modern? Moored along the Thames, the HMS Belfast is a great starting point. Commissioned in 1936 and completed in 1939, the HMS Belfast would see action in World War II, most notably in Operation Overlord, or D-Day.
This is Robert St. John in the NBC newsroom in New York. Ladies and gentlemen, we may be approaching a fateful hour. All night long, bulletins have been pouring in from Berlin claiming that D-Day is here, claiming that the invasion of Western Europe has begun.
HMS Belfast would also sail east later in her life and participate in the Korean War. Although old by our standards, she bears much more in resemblance to our current life than some of the other things you see in London. She is a great representation of the fact that the future and the past are relative. Moving back further in time and west, we have the Houses of Parliament, which is part of the Palace of Westminster. Specifically, I want to talk to you about Westminster Hall, which is the oldest part of the complex. I was fortunate enough to attend an event with my father at the House of Lords, and on the way out, there was a brief moment where the two of us were the only two people in Westminster Hall. Built in 1097, Westminster Hall is the oldest part of the complex and was built during the reign of William II. Many famous contemporary leaders have spoken there, such as Nelson Mandela, and famously, Charles II was condemned to death there. Predating Westminster Hall, on the banks of the River Thames, we have another structure, the Tower of London, not to be confused with Tower Bridge. Built in 1066 by William the Conqueror, shortly after his invasion of England, its strategic position was vital to securing his hold on this new nation. It served many purposes, including being the Royal Mint. The structure exists today much as it already did in 1066. I think the fact that if you stand on the other side of the Thames and you look across, you see both the Tower of London, Tower Bridge, which is not by any standards a contemporary, in the foreground, and in the background you have the looming skyscrapers of the city. We're almost now back 1,000 years, and we haven't even touched on the Roman influence of London. It's commonly known that London is a Roman city in origin. But just how Roman is it? And what bearing on modern life do these Roman remains have? The Temple of Mithras, discovered in 1954 due to ongoing building works, is a prime example of this. Here you see some photos of the excavation site in 1954. It would be rebuilt in a car park roughly 100 meters away, rather inaccurately. Later, when the company Bloomberg acquired the land, they decided to put the temple back to its original place. Archaeologists worked for 4 years to make a faithful reconstruction. Now sat, roughly 7 meters below the surface level, the temple is accessible to the public. So what is the oldest man-made object in London? Curiously enough, it was not always here. If you head west, along the River Thames, on the right-hand side of the bank, towering above the trees, you'll see an obelisk made of red granite. This is Cleopatra's Needle, and is roughly 3,400 years old. A common accusation against the British is that many of the ancient artifacts that ended up here in London were taken rather than given. However, Cleopatra's Needle is an exception to this. It was given by the Pasha, Muhammad Ali, for British assistance in the Napoleonic Wars. It would spend another 60 years in Egypt due to the massive cost of transporting this behemoth across the sea. The story of how it came to be here is etched on iron placards that adorn the obelisk. I used to work not very far from the obelisk, and it would be a main feature of my lunchtime walk. Sometimes, in the summer, I would sit beneath it in the shade, looking out across the Thames. I find it amazing to think that so many people pass by this ancient wonder every day, not even really understanding what it represents. I hope to continue to look for the history in the world around us, and I hope you do too.